Hello and be alive. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And I know I say this at every episode, but today we have a really, really special guest for you. He is one of a very small group, but we get started right after this. Hello, and we are back. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show, and I'm really excited to catch up with an amazing, not just human being, an amazing chef, a great business person. I had the opportunity, we were just before we came live here, we talked about it. We had our first podcast together. Was it 3-4 years ago, Chef?
Yeah, sounds about right. Yes. Hi, everybody.
And he said, oh my God, I need to have him back on. So today we have a conversation with Master Chef Tom Griffiths. He's not just an amazing human being and chef, as I said. He is a real disruptor. He is a real culinary entrepreneur. And not only that, he changes the industry and he does an amazing amount of work out there, mentoring people and supporting people and just giving back in a way I think all of us should. So with that, Chef Tom, welcome to the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Christian.
Chef, can you give everybody the 5-minute cliff note? How Chef Thomas came to be and why you chose to become a chef, and how did you wind up to be one of the very few of the select certified master chefs here in the US?
I think that probably the shortest answer is I didn't apply. I was one of those high school students that if I was interested, I would get an A+, and if I wasn't interested, I kind of do my homework and just put it along. I think the guidance counselors and the teachers saw that as maybe my being lazy, and they didn't understand different personalities in those days and tactile learners and all that kind of stuff. But artist type people. Coming from an Italian family, food was a big part of our life. Too big, in fact. I grew up to be a pretty heavy young kid until I got into high school and started jogging and running and lost some weight. Incidentally, my first job in the culinary world was at Roy Rogers. I worked there for one night only, but I can actually taste to this day the young guy training me slicing a piece of that salty, brown caramelized roast beef off of that giant roast beef that they would slice for the customers. Not my thing, though. I don't think I'm a QSR guy. No offense to the QSR people out there. I worked at a diner and ended up hearing about the CIA. I thought I would be a lawyer, forest ranger, something like that. I love the outdoors. And the guidance counselor said, maybe you're not lawyer material. What else do you like to do? And we started talking about cooking, Boy Scout cooking and cooking, bringing the Dutch oven on campouts and cooking peach cobbler and Bisquick and stuff. And I ended up going to the CIA. Best move of my life. In those days, it wasn't like you had 20 different choices and you would go to different colleges looking at different venues. There was one college, and I drove up there with my mom one beautiful autumn day, and being at in the Hudson Valley, overlooked at the CIA, a beautiful Jesuit building. It was just beautiful, like Hogwarts or Disneyland or something. So I enrolled and got in and just kept going. I naively just applied for things that came into my vision. I didn't even know what a master chef was. A couple of my colleagues signed me up for a weekend master chef class with Victor Helisay and Fritz Sonnenschmidt and Hartmut Henke. And boy, it was like the roughest boot camp you can imagine. I think it was Columbus weekend, 3-day weekend, and we just got a rear ends handed to us. But I loved it. I learned so much about how to be a better craftsman and a better cook, and I got addicted, and I just kept going with it till eventually taking the master chef test, which is frankly impossible. But you find a way. God was involved in that for me, that's for sure.
I love your story every time you tell the story on how you gotten into the CIA. And by the way, we just became, so we part of the CIA Society of Fellows. So we're really excited about it. We haven't done any of the meetings yet, so we have an upcoming meeting in a month. I'm really excited about. And we're excited about hopefully learning a lot more how we can kind of give back to the organization and also meet some really cool people. They send us the members roster. It's pretty amazing who's part of that group. So I'm really excited about it. So MasterChef, there's this thing out there about MasterChef. So can you tell our listeners a little bit what it takes to do that? And you kind of hit on it a little bit. How was the experience for you to go through the process?
The MasterChef exam, it evolves. When I took it, it was a 10-day exam, and there was academic testing that you were evaluated on each day, cooking tests. But it's primarily a test of your culinary expertise. I believe now it's an 8-day test, and I know that the master chefs are continually considering how to make it more practical for people nowadays and more realistic for people's lifestyle and their careers, so that it's doable. When I took it, I had just been on the Culinary Institute of America's Olympic team for several years, so I was kind of battle hardened. You lived on adrenaline. You didn't get much sleep. We were always you just did it, and we had won gold medals as a team. So I had honed my craft a bit, and I was working with chefs who were great chefs, and 4 or 5 of us were like practicing on and off together for the Master Chef exam, impromptu, but practicing things like tourneing, fluid mushrooms, things that palm souffle, things that you don't necessarily do every day in your your regular work role. When I was about to take the exam, I had just gotten Lyme disease, actually. But the day of the exam, my knee was the size of a honeydew melon. It had swollen up so much. So I had decided not to take the test. And I was heartbroken about that. My biggest concern wasn't the Lyme disease, because, again, we were used to being fatigued and working. It didn't faze any of us from the Olympics. It was more about, I was worried that the chemicals in the medication would change my palate and everything would taste metallic. So the night before the exam, the people taking the test are invited to a beautiful dinner at the CIA, hosted by the evaluators who are there at that time for the first test. And none of the people taking the test want to be there. You want to be in your room studying, like you're nervous, and they're all very you're having this 3-course wonderful dinner, and the master chef evaluators are very professional and very nice and thoughtful. So when the meal's finally over, we draw our day 1 and day 2 maybe mystery baskets, and we get on a long line at a wedding to go greet and shake each master chef's hand, and we're free to go. So one of the first people online was President Tim Ryan. So again, I went there at a protocol to let them know I wouldn't be taking the exam. So Tim Ryan said, "Hey, Tom, hey, I heard you have Lyme disease. That's no big deal. Will Franklin had kidney stones when he did the Master Chef test. Halfway through the test,
I remember that.
Lyme disease is nothing. See you tomorrow." So I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm taking the test." You don't say no to President Ryan, and on we went. And I did real well for most days. There were crash and burn days. I remember one day I had to make Jamaican jerk pork with all papas, tortilla de papas, and all the trimmings. And I had a different commis almost every single day, unfortunately, due to illnesses. So my commis came and I said, here's a list of ingredients. Gather them and bring the Waring blender, and we're going to make the jerk spice. And the student said, "What's a Waring blender?" And I said, "Where are you in the curriculum?" And the student said, "Oh, this is my 3rd week." So I was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die," and I didn't do that great that day, but I'm taking full responsibility. And then later on, the classical day was a typical thing where I had beautiful sauteed Dover sole a la minute in the window. And if you squeeze one lemon on your Dover sole, if you squeeze three, it tastes even better. So I can remember, Chef Dale Miller years later saying to me, we could barely eat that. It was so lemony. And I'm thinking, you guys, I think I got a 69 or so. I got the lowest score you could possibly get to pass. And, let it roll off your back. And then the final day, I had decided to make carrot timbales, no matter what I got for my entree, and then tourne carrots and put like little feathers, like an Indian would wear in their, or a Native American Indian would wear in their head thing. And I made a timbale. I had leg of lamb for the third time in 10 days. So I made a ground leg of lamb stuffing, and I stuffed it in Swiss chard and like you'd make stuffed grape leaves, and I put it in a timbale mold and had that. And then I had these little carrot little carrot mousselines with the carrots in the top, and the top round of lamb and the bottom round as a showpiece. It was a beautiful Olympic platter. It was great. I don't think I could ever cook that well ever in my life again. And by that point, I had a minute left, and my body was just overwhelmed with emotion, and I couldn't stop my hand from shaking to put the carrots in the darn mousses. And my helper was this young chef named Megan. And I said, Megan, I can't. She said, your hand is shaking. I said, I can't stop my hand from shaking. Can you? So she started putting them on, and her hand started shaking because the adrenaline, we were so flying. And then Chef Brad Barnes was the kitchen proctor, the main proctor. And all of a sudden he said, what is that damn juice dripping out of your timbale? Clean that up, Chef Griffiths. And all of a sudden, the juice was, my meat was resting and the juice was dripping out. And it was such a beautiful platter. But, these platters don't stay beautiful for a long time. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I passed. And I remember going to the Escoffier room to visit Chef Xavier Leroux and the maitre d' John Nyhoff, two of my closest friends. And they opened up a bottle of champagne for me. And Chef Leroux said, what's the big deal? I dreamt you were going to pass last night. I knew you were going to pass. I dreamt it. And I was like, oh my God. But it's a great journey. And the bottom line, Christian, is anyone who prepares for the test is just going to make you a better cook anyway. So I would say anyone that's really earnestly practicing and preparing, you've already won on so many levels because of the effort you're putting into it. And, it's nice to pass, of course. And those are some of my fun stories I'm happy to share with people.
That's awesome.
But it's cooking. It's cooking, showing a mastery of cooking at a very high level. That's really what it's about.
So many people out there just, Chef Tim Recht that I seen, he didn't pass the last time he went.
Yeah.
And, a phenomenal chef. And I hear the nerves is getting the better of people while they're there. It's more mental than actually physically cooking. So
when I evaluate it, I definitely see people, it gets in their head. Some people in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but it seems like some people are so awed by it. So or the master chefs, they have such respect for it. And that's great. But, I remember a couple of master chefs telling a group of us in practice, you have to get to the point where you hate the evaluators. You just hate them. They're the enemy. And that's what I had in my mind. I just was a master. You have to be a master chef and act like a master chef and not in any way be subordinate to anybody, because otherwise you're not a master chef candidate, So I remember some of the master chefs telling us, undoubtedly there'll be a point in the exam where mentally you'll just say, I should leave. I don't belong here. Yeah. So you have to have psychologically in your brain, these motivating things. This is probably ridiculous, but when I took it, I had some of my children, my son especially, was very, very young. And we used to watch a lot of Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and all that kind of jazz. And I remember this scene where from this movie, this character named Ivan Ooze is taking over the world, and he has all these little oozy monsters attacking the world. And he's like, welcome to my nightmare. And then the Power Rangers appear, and there's all this loud, wild music. And Tommy, the White Ranger, says, welcome to our nightmare. And they start kicking everything. but I bet you 10 times a day in my brain, I said, welcome to my nightmare, because you got to keep like, you're like, there's no way in the world. I have 40 minutes. There's no way I'm going to finish this. And then you just psych yourself out and you go multitask and you do it, you do it, you do it. And it's like, oh my God, I did it, you know? So you have to find your own Tommy Ranger. I don't know who's going to be. But this is getting to be the funniest. You said this is disruptive, right? This is the disruptive me.
It is. I absolutely love that conversation, and I love you talk about Fritz Schmidt, Chef Brad Barnes, and all the people we know, and it's amazing because there's so many people out there. First of all, I think there's two groups. People don't understand what it actually is. Number one, they don't understand, because I think before we started this podcast, we talked about there's people calling themselves Master Chef, never went to culinary school. And then there's the other group which understands what it is and goes into and becoming one of them, and maybe has met some of them and been friends with many of them. And for me, it's actually humbling because they're some of the nicest people I ever worked with. And, you including that. It's just, for me, it's a really cool group. They're just amazing human beings.
Fritz Schmidt, he's like one of the nicest men in the world. He is a rough judge. When I had the classical day, I had consomme floreal. It's like a variety of spring vegetables, and I was given frozen peas. So I put them in the bottom of my refrigerator. I totally forgot to serve them. So I forgot. So he said, you left the peas out of your consomme. Beautiful consomme, but you left the peas out. Was there some reason? So I said, well, chef, I have such respect for the craft and the consomme. I have such respect for escoffier and consomme. I didn't want to put any crappy frozen peas in my consomme. He reamed me. Oh my God. Don't give Chef Hassan. He's nice until you get him mad. Oh my God. It was, and then I apologized afterwards. And, you don't say something dumb like that to the judges. Like, I didn't want frozen peas. If we gave them to you, they were appropriate. Oh my God. That was something.
My story with Chef Smith, that was actually him and Chef. Do you remember Chef Wolfgang Bierer, master pastry chef, German guy?
No, I don't.
We did a NACAF's dinner in Maryland in 1999. I will never forget that. And Chef Schmidt is in and helping, and he's going with Chef Wolfgang. And I came in, Chef Wolfgang said, you need help with the dessert. Can you help me with the desserts? And we had like 40 plates to go and we ran out of chocolate. And he says, you need to temper chocolate quick because we need to have the chocolate garnish on it. So I was like, oh my God, people coming picking up. So I put the chocolate in the microwave. He took his apron, threw the apron on the ground. He says, you just raped the chocolate. How dare you put chocolate in the microwave? I was like, and then Fritz Schmidt is laughing in the back there. I was like, oh my God. He says, don't ever tell anybody you're European. You just put chocolate in the microwave.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
That's what Chef Wolfgang said to me. You raped the chocolate. This is culinary rape. He says, yeah, you lost all respect from chocolate. So I will never microwave chocolate again. And then, so dinner is over. And then Chef Fritz said, he says, there's two differences with chefs. Cooks with no apron. A chef wears an apron. And then he says, there's the pastry chefs, the one which show love to the chocolate. Those are the real pastry chefs. And the other ones, which are in the microwaves, are the guys without apron. And you were one of them tonight. And then I was like, I will never put it back in the microwave. Yeah. And it's just, they were pandering back and forth that they went to an event in Colombia and Chef Fritz got arrested because he had a business card on which said CIA, and he had the roll-on knives under his arm. He can't do that anymore, but he was arrested, supposedly in Colombia, and he got frisked because he had a CIA business card on. So it's just, but seeing them back and forth, but again, some of the most amazing human beings. And Chef Fritz, I try to stay in touch with them as much as we can, and just a really good group. So for people in the industry which thinking of doing something like that, what it would be a piece of advice you have for those guys which considering eventually go for that exam?
I think build a foundation. and do things the right way. I've always felt that there's shortcuts, and it's hard. Nowadays there's like food hacks and shortcuts,
Mhm.
and I see a lot of chefs lack discipline these days, and they want to do it the wrong way. They don't make a bechamel sauce; they just add heavy cream, or they don't want to do the hard work. I think if
Mhm.
you're going to go for the master chef test, I think that you want to be around master chefs so that you understand apples to apples about the way they're cooking and the way they're thinking. The ACF and AMCO has some really great programs where you're mentored and coached, and they help you to become a better chef and more organized. I think that's the kind of thing I would do. For me, it was the Culinary Olympics or being an educator at the CIA. You teach, you're forced to learn a lot. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot from students too. Students that would go on externs and come back working at some of the top restaurants in the country or the world, they would bring back amazing information to share. But I think you kind of got to get in with the group that's doing that. And you have to listen. The biggest thing is you have to listen. Most people don't like feedback. They see you responding and saying something, but they don't agree with you, and they're not
Yeah.
going to change. That's a big one.
I love what you just said. Do you think the industry changed because of the way food is being viewed? And food is everywhere. You can go to a gas station, there's food. You can go to Walmart, there's food. Or is it that just people don't want to put in the hard work? Because being I was classically French trained. And when you talked about bechamel, bechamel was a job, reducing cream and doing the proper things to make it a proper way. Um, I didn't think about it until you said it. I don't think none of my friends do it that way. Everybody does shortcuts. Where do you think that is in the industry, or where is that coming from?
Well, I have an R&D background for the last 15 or 20, maybe 20 years. I mean, I'm a chef through and through, but I've been a vice president of research and development for the last 15 or 20 years, and consulting now. So I think that two things. That's a great question. There's two things. One, people sell what people buy. So if customers are not discerning, and they want to buy food that's not delicious, or food that's not healthy, or things that are not good for you or not good for the environment, then that's what people will sell them, because these are people that are making the decisions, and the companies that sell things are marketers. The engineers produce them in R&D, and the chefs are low in the totem pole. I can name several dozen chefs who are working their way up to directors and vice presidents and presidents and eventually CEOs of companies. So the food will be better because
Mhm.
they'll think about that. They won't think about making a profit as much or only, or they won't think about where to buy the cheapest carrots or whatever. They'll think about delicious, good food for people. The other thing is, in the restaurants and things, I don't know why these young cooks don't want to follow the proper disciplines and cook the right way. I'm writing a cookbook. I've been struggling with this. Not sure how to write a cookbook, but I decided I had information I wanted to share. I wanted to share my history, like an
Mhm.
autobiography kind of thing, or like I don't want to tell secrets or anything about my CIA days or restaurant days, but I do want to share. And I know that I don't have the energy or the desire to like go hawk cookbooks at a food conference and things. So I'm in the process of having my website done professionally. A great talented young chef did it for me, but I'd like to, and then I probably destroyed it with my cuckoo grassroots way of posting. So I want to have my website done professionally, and then find a way where I can post recipes of cooking food the proper way.
Mhm.
Um, and there could be possible shortcuts, but none of this crazy food hack stuff, where people can learn, recipes the right way to make, that you can make at home, and then somehow have that gravitate onto my website as a blog or something where people can go to it. And I don't know
Yeah.
if it'll be free, or maybe charge $10 or $20, something really cheap so everybody can afford it. or maybe free. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of people, there's a lot of foodies and people out there that just don't know how to cook and they want to. And there's a lot of people giving them, there's so much. I mean, if you watch some of these YouTube videos of people cooking, talk about putting chocolate in the microwave. I watch some of these videos and I'm horrified with people trying to teach other people how to cook. And it's just bastardization and, shoemakers. They call them cobblers now. Cobblers showing people how to cook. So I hope I've answered your question.
No,
I'm gonna get on a tangent here because this is a big
no,
issue.
but I agree with you 100%. I mean, I honestly think people don't know what they don't know. And the people which look at food the way I think we are the same generation, the way we look at food, food is an amazing piece, and you don't do shortcut. You don't, there's ways of doing it, then there's a way of doing it. And the way we were brought up, I practiced in my apprenticeship, I had a German master pastry chef. He felt that, pastry chefs are better cooks than cooks because they actually measure. Real cooks don't measure. And then we had a German master chef, Karl Fürtinger, I worked under, and he was the meanest guy I ever met. And if he's seen you a shortcut, I will never forget that. So we made omelets, and he said, the moment the omelet is brown, I want you to throw it out. And I seen him come and I flipped it over, so I didn't see brown. And I was said, I don't know how he does it, but he knew and seen everything. And he says, the next time I see you do this, he says, I'm gonna take the meat fork, I stick it so far in your stomach that you have room for 6 pairs of frankfurters in the back. And and I threw it out. And then also he was he never walking in a freezer, but when we did family meal, he said, Christian, go in there, just behind the thing, that's what he cooked the pork tenderloins. I was like, how does he know? He doesn't go, just one of the old people. And shortcuts, he had no patience for shortcuts. No patience for shortcuts. And I don't think that's being taught anymore. Not that we want to threaten people to stick him with the meat fork, but I just think the industry kind of moved away from that kind of way of teaching, because you couldn't do it anymore today the way we were taught.
Also, I think chefs probably need to, I don't know if they need to get paid more, probably, but they need to work less hours. I've had opportunities as a consultant in the last few years. Mostly my role as an advisor, and I love helping companies. I only work with companies where the people are like-minded, where they want to make food that's delicious and healthy and sustainable. But I've worked in restaurants and I've worked in country clubs and things. And I was mortified with how dirty, how filthy some of these kitchens and walk-ins are, especially having been an instructor at the CIA. I didn't even know that could exist. I thought that everybody just would know that. But some of these chefs are not professional, and that's part of it. That's part of the conversation we're having. Can you imagine working in a dirty kitchen and serving? I mean, I worked at this country club helping out for a while they found their chef, and they had sauces that were sour, and they would serve them to people. Like they didn't throw something away when they had to make more. That's when they made more. So if this tomato sauce is 9 days old, it was 9 days old. I'm gonna have nightmares tonight just talking about this. So I think there's a certain level of personal pride too. I'm a big gray area person, but certain lines you don't cross. So I think if I couldn't imagine somebody cooking food in a dirty kitchen like that, making food that's good. They're not going to make bechamel sauce. They're just disgusting. Not a real chef. They're a cobbler.
Yeah. I will use the word cobbler because I was just recently in a kitchen in a hospital, should stay nameless. And I'm talking to the chef and I hear this mixer going in the back. For the longest time, I said, Chef, do you need to go back to shut it off? He says, no, we're making roux. You making roux? So he says, yeah, I forgot what butter it, flour and water.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. It sounds delicious.
And I don't know what to say. I said, all I know is this is not roux, and I don't think you should serve it. He says, no, it's great because we can last it 2-3 weeks. in the refrigerator, and he pulled it out. The water on top was black from the flour, and this gooey stuff came out, and he said, "Oh, because I can't use." I said, "Why don't you make it with butter?" And oh, I can't use butter. This is not a roux. This is it's not roux whatever he made, but he was mixing it back for 25 minutes. So I just, for me, I always go back. My family, we go back to Europe a lot, and my wife always says, eating in Europe is different. It feels, she says, it doesn't feel better. It feels more professional, and I think that's. I don't want to knock our industry, but today, as long as you don't have any severe things on your background, you could become a chef. It's a entry level industry, and it attracts entry level. You said something earlier, and you kind of skipped over it. I honestly think chefs are underpaid. I think that's where it starts, and I just think it reflects throughout.
Yeah,
And
money is a bad motivator, though. That's why I stopped saying it, because I realized if you have professional pride and passion and respect the craft, money will come. But it would be a lot easier if you could afford it. But I don't think chefs or anybody should be working 70, 80 hours a week, 6, 7 days a week. I'm sure I'm sure both of us have worked. I remember working years for 7 days a week and 6.5 days a week, and it's not good for you in any way.
Chef, by the way, I love this conversation, and we need to do a 2.0. But tell our listeners a little bit what you do now, and you started talking about it. I love how your career evolved, and you said 15 years now in research and development. How did you get started in the R&D side?
When you become a master chef, you're heavily recruited. So I was recruited by Campbell Soup Company, and I didn't know anything about Campbell Soup. The day I heard about it, I drove home. I drove to the grocery store, and I was shocked at the different things Campbell Soup had. And I interviewed only for the point of interviewing as practice. I had no intention of joining Campbell Soup Company, and I certainly didn't know canned soup was a declining business. But when I went and interviewed and met some of the leaders, I was so impressed. They were such great, intelligent, thoughtful people. I remember driving home, and the last person I met with was the president at the time, a guy named Sean Connolly, and he was so impressive and down to earth. The president of Campbell Soup for the whole world. Campbell Soup is in the whole world, and he said, "Hey, are you doing anything now?" And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm going to drive back." He goes, "Can you wait?" He said, "We've been interviewing a lot of people. You're the guy. Your boss, your future boss, is home sick, but I'm going to tell him to come in and meet you." I said, "All right." So my future boss drove an hour and a half sick to come and meet me, a guy named George Dowdy, probably the best boss I've ever had in my life. Great, intuitive, smart, empathetic guy, great leader. So about 6 o'clock, I start to drive back to the CIA. This is like a 6-hour drive now, because you're driving rush hour through all this traffic. And about halfway home, the recruiter called and said, "What did you do?" And I thought I blew it, because everyone kept asking me if I embraced ambiguity and diversity. I didn't know what ambiguity meant. I had no idea what that word meant. So I just kind of faked it. So I said, "Oh, was it that bad?" I was like, to laugh, and I was like, "That bad?" He goes, "No, they want to hire you. When can you go back for your next interview?" I said, I don't know. I said, "I called in sick today and I feel terrible. I don't call in, like, I lied. I called in sick to go to this interview. I can't do that again for like months." He's like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I don't do that." So I ended up, it took like months to do it and all. But that's how I got involved. Everybody wants to hire a master chef. So that's what happened. And it was great. It was a global role. So I got to travel all over Europe. I had chefs in Provence. I had chefs in Belgium, Germany, all over Asia, Hong Kong, China, studying trends and ingredients in food. It was an amazing job and had great success. One of the biggest things, there's a soup called Well Yes, and my chefs, chef named Brian Cozy in particular, my chefs developed it using ingredients like quinoa and Swiss chard and farro, and I think, well, yes, can has a cleaner label than most foods that are fresh. It's just a great, one of the best lunches of Campbell
Yeah.
soup in history. So it was very successful. But I will say that the food scientists and engineers don't love having chefs on R&D because they don't embrace the chefs. They kind of think they can do it without us. In my opinion, that was my experience,
Yeah.
unfortunately, which is why food is not that great, because you don't have enough chefs steering the ship to make the food delicious.
Yeah, I so resonate. I worked for Nestle for 20 years, and chefs were viewed differently because they were saying chefs just slow things down, and chefs, So I absolutely agree with that. And I want to be respectful of your time, so we definitely need to do a second conversation. I want to know a little bit more on how our listeners could go into the R&D set if you choose to. And you've been very successful at it, have a successful consulting business today. I want to have a little bit more of a conversation around that. But before we wrap up today's episode, I need to promise to come back for a 2.0. And then we haven't told you yet, but we have little rapid fire questions for you. We do for our special guests. So we have 3 questions we're going to ask you when we wrap up. But before we get to the rapid fire question, can you tell our audience how can they learn more about Chef Tom and what you do? And how can they consume your content?
They can definitely find me on Facebook or LinkedIn or my website, TWG Consulting LLC. Happy to, about 4, 5, 6 times a year, I post just a reminder that I'm happy to mentor and coach people. Basically say, I've made so many mistakes. I have lots of great experience and expertise, but it came with lots of mistakes. So if I can help them not make mistakes, my pleasure. I probably speak to about 100, 150 people a year, and just
That's awesome.
listen to them and hear what they're thinking. And sometimes I don't offer any advice, but it's just nice to have someone to talk to. I know it's a really hard occupation. I know that, I get it. So sometimes people just like to have someone listen and empathize with them. I'm happy to make new friends, that's for sure.
That's awesome. And for our listeners, when you get to our YouTube channel, we will have all of Chef Tom's information in the show notes. Please reach out and see what he does. It's pretty amazing to follow his career and the impact he had over the years. So before we wrap up today, Chef Tom, are you ready for our rapid fire questions? We have 3 questions.
Really.
I got my sheet. And so here we go. Question number 1. Chef, if given the power to ban an ingredient forever, what is it and why?
Oh, wow. I don't like fake truffle oil. I love truffles, especially the aroma and infusing them in ingredients. I feel like I've gone to restaurants and ordered food like shrimp, and you would never in your wildest imagination expect there to be truffles on it, and it's zapped with truffle oil the last second. It tastes medicinal and artificial, and I just forced. So I would get rid of fake truffle oil.
By the way, some people build a career around that. You just made some people very upset. By the way, I 100% agree. Truffle oil not done right overtakes everything, and you can taste anything else. I totally agree with that. So if given the same power, what dish would you get rid of? And, they just need to stop making it tomorrow.
I can't stand those those I think they're called hot pots in the Midwest. I love them, but not made with canned soup. Like taking like a can of creamy chicken and a can of creamy mushroom and a can of creamy something and pouring it all into a bowl and putting stuff in it. I like scratch cooking. I don't like anything fake. It tastes fake and it's fattening and heavy and gross. But I love hot pot. So please, all the Midwesterners, don't get mad at me for saying that. I just don't like the fake canned versions.
I love that. Our last question is, what is a kitchen gadget which is way overrated?
I hate garlic. I hate garlic presses. It's so freaking hard to clean a garlic press. How hard is it to crush garlic with a French knife? I mean, seriously. I'd get rid of garlic press.
Just made another group very upset because people love their garlic press. I actually
Everybody off today, huh? Oh boy.
I went to a store the other day And I happened to look at a garlic breast, $14 for
Wow.
a garlic breast. I'm not sure when that happened. I don't have one. There's a reason. You agreed you don't need that. But thanks for being open to share your insights on our rapid fire questions.
Can I
Go ahead.
share one
Yeah.
tool I think I love to have? I love having a lemon press. I think those are the funnest things in the world. I love making lemon juice or orange juice or lime juice with a lemon press.
Yeah, obviously, because you put a lot of lemons on your fish back in your exam. So
I
you
was thinking
carried on.
about making fashions with oranges, but yes, you had to go
I,
back there and put salt on the wound. Thank you for that.
I'm not surprised that you love that. So, but Chef Tom, we really appreciate you coming on our show. You need to promise to come back for 2.0. So, any closing words or words of wisdom for anybody listening in today?
I appreciate so much this opportunity, and I think it's great what you do. And all of the chefs who don't want to put the disciplines in, maybe you want to rethink your career and put the disciplines in and cook with passion and pride and follow the legacies of the great chefs that we study about. And if I can help anybody, happy to. So please reach out. Anything I can do to help anybody, I'm happy to do that.
We really appreciate it, Chef Tom. Thanks for the gift of your time. Thanks for sharing your insight and your wisdom. And to our listeners, if you haven't done so, please get to Tom's website. Make sure you guys follow him on social media. It's amazing what he does. And then also, if you haven't done so, please join the Disruptive Chef community, which is the disruptivechef.club. It's a front row seat to all the great what we do. And you get to know a little bit about the episodes when they come out and all the great people we have on our podcast. So with that, Chef Tom, thanks for being here today. Until next time, remember to disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian here with Chef Tom. We are signing off for today. Be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. With that, until next time, stay disruptive, everybody.